nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs to rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First-rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
Hello and welcome to a Monday edition of the Managing Madrid Podcast. I'm your host, Kiyan Sobhani, back after the tiniest of breaks this weekend, which really wasn't even a break, but thanks to Matt Wiltsey for holding it down with the post-game show after Real Madrid beat Al Hilal to be crowned Club World Champions once again. A trophy in the book, something to give us some juice for the rest of the season. Joining me, as always, on Mondays is the great Lucas Navarrete. Lucas, how you doing, man? How was your weekend?
I'm doing fine. It was just average, really. Nothing spectacular about it. Just stayed at home pretty much both days. And I don't watch the final on Saturday. Tried to catch a little bit of Barcelona and Villarreal last night, but average weekend. Can't complain.
Average weekend with paella and football, right? Am I getting that right?
No, paella next weekend, I think. I didn't eat paella this one. I'll have one next weekend. It's my birthday on Friday, so I'll have one to celebrate with the friends and the family over the weekend.
Okay, here we go. So next week is a birthday mailbag edition of the Managing Madrid Podcast. Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Lucas, before this Club World Cup final, I was kind of conflicted because heading into the Club World Cup final, I was thinking, extra trip, extra games, traveling to a different country, albeit Morocco is pretty close and might as well be in Spain, so it's not a big deal. But it is extra games. Halfway through the tournament, which is basically right after the semifinal, I was thinking maybe this was somehow a good thing. Maybe a break from La Liga, a break from Spain, getting away from the league for a little bit, given that everything that surrounds Vinicius game in, game out in Spain. Maybe you pile up the goals, get some confidence. Turns out we scored combined 9 goals over the course of 2 games. I don't care who the opposition was. I just think that, the players can use that as confidence. Fede Valverde scoring again. Do you think somehow you can take this with a positive spin?
Sure. There are reasons for Madridistas and for the coaching staff and for the board and even for the players to feel good about the Club World Cup. As you mentioned, Valverde and Vinicius to me are the two biggest takeaways of the entire tournament. I think the two of them got the opportunity to bounce back a little bit from their recent performances, which hadn't been so impressive, especially in Valverde's case. Seems that Valverde has definitely caught a break and performed the right way in the Club World Cup and will be able to contribute from now on in a much more efficient way than he was doing. I thought it was a smart move from Ancelotti to put him in the right wing now that Benzema was injured, because even though I think we both agree on the fact that it might not be his best position, it's still one where you probably don't need a lot of confidence and a brilliant form to deliver and perform in a good way. So I think it was a good position for Valverde, a good 2 games for Valverde overall to regain some confidence and some form, and these two are the biggest takeaways I can think of about this tournament. Other than that, I think we should take these 2 performances with a bit of caution. In terms specifically of Modric and Kroos, I see some people already celebrating the fact that Kroos and Modric are back and they'll be able to, to somehow in just 2 games put all these worrying performances behind them. So apart from Vinicius and Valverde points I just mentioned, I think it would be wise to take these 2 games as, cautiously optimistically, but not too confident because of the opposition Real Madrid faced overall also.
Yeah, but that's true. That's, the the more overarching, holistic perspective is that, yeah, obviously the teams you scored against were not that great, with all due respect to both of them. Our defending was actually pretty poor in the second game. But what I would say is that, again, sometimes you don't need great opposition to get your brain to reshift. When Fede Valverde sees the ball going into the back of the net, when he shoots and lets it fly, I think that triggers something in his brain, be like, okay, I'm back, So I think that matters. It's funny, Lucas, we uploaded a little clip from Friday's mailbag for free today. And it was, the question about should Real Madrid prioritize Castilla players over scouting over in Brazil. Everyone can listen to that if they haven't already. In that podcast, because it was recorded in between the semifinal and the final. And I was asking you the question like, hey, against Elche, Asensio's injured, Vinicius missing. Can Arribas make a run? We were so excited after that semifinal when Arribas scored. Asensio was back pretty much immediately. It's great news overall. I was definitely surprised that he didn't get in at all, but you were right. You called it. Does that change against Elche with Vinicius missing that game?
I wouldn't keep my hopes up about that. I don't think. Now that Valverde is back on the right wing, now that Militao is expected to be back, which means that also Ancelotti has potentially one more body for the midfield line, with Camavinga potentially returning to that spot. I think that ultimately Ancelotti is going to go with with Rodrigo, Valverde, and Asensio. I mean, Arribas would have likely had a chance with Asensio out. I'm not sure if he would have gotten into the starting lineup, although it's definitely true that who else was going to be available otherwise. But now that Asensio is there, Rodrigo, Valverde, and yeah, this one I just mentioned, and Asensio, are going to be the three players starting. Arribas might get a chance late in the game, but I'm not sure if Ancelotti will want to force Castilla to play without him, considering how important Arribas is for them and how well Castilla are competing so far this season, in the sense that so far they're still fighting to achieve that direct spot towards Segunda División. So I'm not sure I'm not sure if Ancelotti will prioritize giving Arribas 15-20 minutes as a substitution in a quote-unquote manageable game over allowing Castilla to have its most impactful and its most important player in what's going to be an extremely important season for them. I think Ancelotti will ultimately start those three players I mentioned and possibly end the game without any substitutions for the offensive line.
That's the big point. I mean, to me, I've been one of the biggest flag bearers of get Castilla to Segunda. They're getting close this year. They look good. They're only a couple points off Alcorcon, I think, for first place in that
one
group.
Or two, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, in so many years in recent years, they've come close, or they get to the playoffs and then they lose in the playoffs. This year, they actually, I think, have the best shot they've had in a long time. I don't know if I prioritize that over the first team, but it is what it is. So we'll see where that goes. You and I don't have that much to talk about today.
However, Kiyan, let me just mention that it's true that I completely forgot that Real Madrid hosts Elche on Thursday, and Castilla obviously don't have a game then. So, I mean, playing or giving Arribas some minutes.
We play Elche on Wednesday, bro.
Wednesday, sorry, excuse me. But anyway, point stands that Castilla won't play until Sunday, even more so now that you've mentioned it's Wednesday and not Thursday. So
yeah, it's a big break.
You're not taking Arribas away from Castilla if you give him some minutes. So maybe he gets some minutes late in the game, yeah.
If he doesn't, because obviously Arribas didn't play with Castilla this weekend, because he was with the team in Morocco. So if he doesn't play against Elche, that's over 1 week of break for him, for a 21-year-old kid. I don't think it will affect him if anything, it might help him to get those reps and then go
Yep.
down to a lower level with confidence and stuff. So
Yep.
in this particular case, the answer to this might change week to week, but in this particular case, I don't think he'll be a problem. But again, we're talking about Ancelotti, who was probably devastated that Arriba scored in that game. Okay, so I was going to say, you and I don't have that much to talk about today, but there is one item on the agenda that I think is at least interesting to entertain. Our good friend Alex Kirkland, with Rodrigo Faiez of ESPN, reported today that Real Madrid are maybe kicking the tires around Vlahovic or Richarlison as a plan B. Where do you want to start with this?
First of all, let me say that this is polarizing news to everyone. From what I gathered in my mentions, it seems that some fans are so excited that they cannot believe the news, and they're just saying, "Oh, I can't believe it! Real Madrid finally woke up and realized that help for the offensive line is needed." And then some others are saying that Vlahovic is not good enough and that Richarlison hasn't scored a goal in the entire season. So polarizing news. To me, it's good news that Real Madrid are considering a player like Vlahovic. I think Vlahovic is a very interesting player. I'm guessing he wouldn't be cheap because obviously Juventus don't have the need to sell him. On the other hand, he might be able to. He has the leverage to kind of force Juventus to at least entertain the idea of selling him if Juventus fail to clinch their presence in next year's edition of the Champions League. So, and this definitely seems what's going to happen. I don't see Juventus overcoming those many points in the table. So Vlahovic would be an interesting target to be and an interesting addition. Makes sense for me to bring him in, considering that Endrick should not be, in my opinion, Endrick should not be expected to carry the burden and to lead the team scoring wise as soon as he comes here. We've talked about this already. And I think that Real Madrid should not rely on Benzema as much as they've done so far this season. I think the physical problems will continue to happen. You cannot defy time in this regard. So Vlahovic makes a lot of sense to me. I'm not as excited about Richarlison. Richarlison would be expensive too, coming out of the Premier League. Big contract would be needed. I realize he's a quality player, but to me, he doesn't move the needle as much for Real Madrid. Vlahovic would be an interesting target to me. Richarlison, I'm not so excited about. To me, Richarlison would be a pass.
That's interesting. I actually have the opposite feelings as you. To be quite clear, so I'm not that hot. Like, it's interesting that you said this polarizing. These names are polarizing for Real Madrid. I can get why they would be polarizing. One, Vlahovic is kind of a niche striker. Who, like, personally, if I'm on one side of the fence, I would lean towards I'm not really that interested in Vlahovic. I think he's a really, really good striker. I think he was really good last season, especially. He's kind of in that weird spot of, is he too good to be a backup? Is he someone you want to commit long term? Yeah, I think his contract is until 2027. He's going to be he's going to be expensive. I actually would lean towards Richarlison if I had to pick one of these two, in part because I think Richarlison is a little bit more versatile.
Oh, he definitely is.
And I think he would mesh a little bit better with the rest of Real Madrid's offense and not be kind of the more stationary nine. I think he would be more seamless. I think he would get along well with Vinicius, Rodrigo, but also combine with them well. Neither of them will be cheap. Richarlison will be slightly cheaper. I had one quick question, though. I haven't had time to think about this aspect of it, too. Is he non-EU?
Yeah.
He's non-EU.
Yep.
What's our non-EU?
Not a big deal anymore. I think Rodrigo is the only one who hasn't received his Spanish passport now. Vinicius and Militao got it already.
Yeah.
I think Rodrigo is next, and I'm not even sure if he already has it.
Yeah.
I'm not even... So non-EU doesn't play a factor now in the Richarlison discussion, mainly because other players are not waiting behind them Well, Endrick will be non-EU when he comes. That's true.
Yeah.
So Endrick in 2024 will be non-EU. I see your point about Richarlison being the best fit for Rodrigo and Vinicius. I completely agree with that. But on the other hand, I'm not sure how much Richarlison would be able to contribute on the scoring department. And that's mainly what you are possibly going to need over the next 2, 3, 4 seasons when Benzema is either declining or already out of the club. You will need someone who can contribute in the 20 to 30 goals a season range. I'm not sure Richarlison is that kind of player, man. I'm not sure. For sure, I mean, Vinicius and Rodrigo would play better with them. But again, Real Madrid I think Real Madrid would need someone to score goals in that range. I know your feelings. You raise your eyebrows like thinking that you don't know Vlahovic is able of reaching those numbers. I feel you there.
No, that's not why. I was.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll tell you in a second.
All right. I'm not sure if Vlahovic is capable of scoring in that range for Real Madrid on a consistent basis either, but he's a better option for scoring wise than Richarlison, in my opinion. So depends a lot on what your priority is. If you want to keep your playing style the way it is at the moment, because you think Rodrigo is going to take a leap or Vinicius is going to take another leap from the one he took last season and again score 30 goals a season or something like that from either one of the two, I'm fine with Richarlison, but I lean towards Vlahovic because you are going to need someone who's able to replicate Benzema's at least scoring production. 25, 30 goals a season is what you will be needed over the next 3-4 years. And to me, Vlahovic in that regard makes more sense than Richarlison.
Yeah, so I see that aspect of it. And Vlahovic is undoubtedly the better goal scorer between the two. But when you say, you need someone to score 20 to 30 goals, and I don't necessarily know what Real Madrid are looking at, if they're looking at for the guy or just someone on the bench. Because when I look at Vlahovic and Richarlison, what I envision is a role player, not a starter. I'm not that interested in either of those guys being your main guy for the next few years, And that's why I think it's a little bit of a tricky spot to be in, because if you're going to spend 70 million on one of these guys, and Vlahovic is the more likely to get a price tag like that, then is it really worth it, or do you wait it out and see if there's better options? I guess neither of these two players are the guy for me, and they both just be squad players. So I think you have to be very careful about how much you spend for a player like that who might be a stopgap in some way.
Let me be clear here. I don't think Vlahovic is a star, but I seem to be rating him a bit higher than you do. I think he wouldn't be the best player on the offensive line in Real Madrid for sure, but I think he's fine until Endrick is able to break into the starting lineup by 2025, 2026, hopefully. I think he's fine to start on a consistent basis over the next 2-3 seasons. I'm not expecting him to be the guy, as you mentioned in your words. Like he would be a complementary figure to Vinicius and Rodrigo, but I think he would be fine as a decent striker, as a decent starting striker for Real Madrid, as long as Vinicius and Rodrigo keep contributing in the playmaking department as much as they are right now.
Something, and this is why I was raising my eyebrows earlier. Richarlison's numbers are interesting because he hasn't scored a single goal in the Premier League this season.
Right.
Last season he scored 10. I think that in a Real Madrid system that's maybe more fluid and generates more chances, he's more likely to score some more goals. I think you could look at him realistically as a 10 to 15 goal striker. And
That's
part
a
of the
role
reason,
player to me. Yeah.
yeah. I don't see him as a starter, but he would be. The reason why I think he meshes a little bit better with Real Madrid than Vlahovic is that the way Real Madrid are playing right now, and again, this may change next year if Ancelotti's not here and you play with a different kind of striker. But the way that Real Madrid play now, if you could put Richarlison in theoretically in any of the front three if you wanted to.
Yeah.
He's not a traditional winger, but he can at least float around a little bit and play outside the box if needed.
Yeah.
This year, his XG is 1 point something. He's going to have more chances at his disposal at Real Madrid, the way that they play. So I think he's like the 1 point something XG in 10 Premier League games doesn't make any sense. How are they not creating anything with him? And how is he not getting any chances to score? That doesn't make sense to me. I feel like the number will go up for Real Madrid. And so I just feel like that. If given the price of both of them, Richarlison being a little bit cheaper, I think he's just a little bit more interesting to me.
You think Richarlison... You are confident about Richarlison being cheaper than Vlahovic? I'm not so sure.
His
I know that
contract
Juventus
is...
Yeah, I know. And I know that Juventus just spent a lot on Vlahovic, but Vlahovic has more leverage than Richarlison to kind of ask for a move out of the club, in my opinion, even though Tottenham are not doing so great at the moment. But Vlahovic kind of, probably feels entitled to play Champions League football. And Juventus are not going to provide him. I think the price tag will be extremely, extremely similar. I think extremely similar. Even you can argue that the fact that Richarlison probably earns more than Vlahovic, considering the salary structures in the Premier League and in the Serie A. So maybe in that kind of department it would balance out a little bit. One thing you're completely right. You would have to change your playing style to accommodate Vlahovic more than you would need to do so for Richarlison. You need to feed Vlahovic a little bit more than Richarlison needs feeding, in my opinion, to contribute. That's completely right. But again, I'm looking for a guy who's able to carry the scoring burden until Hendrik is able to do so in 2025 or 2026. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We don't even know if Hendrik is going to be that guy in the future. But at least I need someone to buy Hendrik some time until that year on the central striker role and position. And to me, for that kind of timeline and considering what Real Madrid are going to need when Benzema enters his decline or leaves, which is basically goals and numbers, in that regard, Vlahovic makes a little bit more sense to me, but obviously everyone's entitled to his own opinion here.
These are all fair points. You brought up the salary, that's a fair point. The leverage, fair point. I don't really know. I guess time would tell. My hunch is still that, Richarlison's market value is definitely lower than Vlahovic's right now.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's the inferior finisher, and they play the same position. So that's the logic I looked at in terms of who would be cheaper and who would not be.
How much did Tottenham spend on him?
I can tell you in a second.
Was in the 70 million range or something like that, right?
Was it that much? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised in the Premier League.
58.
Yes, that's a lot. But I don't think you'd be paying 58 again to pry him away, right?
Same,
I don't think his market value's gone up since then. It hasn't.
Yeah, but Tottenham are tough, man. Negotiating with Tottenham is
true.
Tough.
This is also true. So I guess my point is, I think if I had to choose between neither of these guys and one of these guys, I would like to have one of these guys in the squad because I think it actually does improve your squad to have one of these guys. So it's not that I hate these names. I guess I'm not that enamored by them, and I understand why they would be polarizing. Partly also because Richarlison is Brazilian. So Richarlison, even if he's not the greatest striker in the world, the Brazilian followers, the cult following is pretty big on social media. They will go to
he
bat
played
for
well
any
in
Brazilian
the World
player.
Cup.
And he was awesome in the World Cup. And that goes back to my point about in that kind of offense with his friends. I think it's a different kind of Richarlison we'll see than the one we see at Tottenham.
You're completely right in that point, within them for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, that would be my logic.
Yeah. it makes sense for Real Madrid to go after a striker next summer, even if it's not really one of these two. It makes sense for Real Madrid to go after a quality striker because Benzema is going to need to be phased out for the next few months, if not years. Hopefully, it's years and not months, but it's coming, and Real Madrid will need help in that department for sure, as we've seen this season already.
Yeah.
Another option would be trusting Rodrigo for that spot and sign a right winger if you think there's more market options.
Yeah.
In the right wing. That would be another option, valid and completely fair and reasonable option, in my opinion. If you don't think any of the strikers out there move the needle for you, you can always trust Rodrigo to play as the Benzema role in the squad and sign a pure right winger, a more pure than right winger than Rodrigo, mind you. Rodrigo, I always feel like he's put there, he can play there, but it's not his natural spot. So you could always try to go after a pure right winger and put Rodrigo as the Benzema role in the squad. Yeah, that's another option you have.
Yeah, I actually would probably prefer that option. I mean, one thing that I would have really, really looked at in the summertime was Gnabry, trying to get Gnabry.
Yeah, same.
Because I think he would have allowed you to do exactly what you just said, where you could commit more time to Rodrigo playing down the middle because he looks good there, and then letting Gnabry get that right wing. I think that would have improved our offense. The counter to that is that you wouldn't have seen Fede do what he did, maybe.
Yeah, correct. He's scored 11 goals already.
Yeah, but I also think Fede can score from midfield too.
Not as often though. So
not as often, but enough. Like that's good production from that position, I think.
It's all valid points. It's not really hard to come out with the best and the optimal solution here. Many players, many factors involved. So Real Madrid will need to choose very carefully here.
Yeah. So yeah, that was an interesting story that came up today in the middle of the season after the transfer window has closed. But it's a report that we can at least look at because it comes from some trustworthy sources. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, Lucas, today?
What do you think? What did you think about Kroos quotes? You saw them, right?
I saw them. I wasn't sure I interpreted them necessarily the way you did, but maybe I should get some clarity on how did you actually interpret his quotes?
I saw the video, to be honest. It's not that I read them, so my interpretation of the quotes. First of all, I don't think there's much interpretation to be done there. I think that it's pretty clear, he's not, how do you call it? How do we say in Spain? You don't have to read between the lines or connect the dots or anything like that in those quotes. To me, he's been pretty open and pretty clear. Whether or not you agree with him, I personally don't. It's a matter for a different discussion here, but to me, he didn't left much for interpretation there. I'm not sure how you saw them.
I mean, I didn't see the video. I only read the quotes, so maybe you're right. I mean, it's a surprising thing for Kroos to come off that way. It would seem kind of out of character for him, but I didn't know if it was more like this should be the starting midfield, like and we're the best option. I think it was just more like, hey, me and Modric can definitely still play at a high level together. It was that's the way I got it.
Yeah, but the part where he adds, when we haven't been on the field, we're seeing a different kind of football. We can still win, but there's a difference.
Yeah. So that part to me was more like, well, when the younger guys are there, it's more high energy, but it's a different brand. But I didn't.
But he also says we can still win, as if your odds are lower.
Or more like we can still win if we're playing two different kinds of football.
Yeah, depends on how you want to view it. I immediately thought that he's kind of assuming that Real Madrid's odds of winning are lower when they're not on the field. That's the way I saw them. It's true that the last part of the quote, he kind of wanted to support the young players and all that, but saying that they deserve minutes, they deserve to play, blah blah blah. But the part when he says we're different, we're seeing a different kind of football. We can still win, but you can tell there's a difference. To me, it's a bit telling. He's just kind of maybe he wants to stand his ground ahead of what's going to be a very important game for Madrid. He wants to maybe send a message to Ancelotti and say, hey, put us in the starting lineup in Anfield. You're not going to regret it. Not that I think he needed those goals, by the way, to make the starting lineup in Anfield.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think you probably analyzed it way more than I did. I think I saw it and I just didn't even. I just looked like, oh, just another quote from another player, just another day. I didn't really think too deeply about it. I mean, you brought it to my attention more now, I guess, but I never really interpreted it that way. But you saw the video, I didn't, so I don't know.
The video was lighthearted, like
yeah,
he's laughing when answering the question and all that, but he's laughing as if the question itself was kind of ridiculous, you know. So it's I don't know. It came out a bit surprising to me. It's true that you never expect Kroos to create controversies. So I probably give him the benefit of the doubt here, but it was surprising to me to see the video and find out that he was like, "Duh, obviously we can play together."
Okay, well, I just saw it a little bit different than you did, I guess, but. Yeah.
To each his own, yeah.
To each his own. I mean, I just, again, I don't know how deep it is, but yeah. I guess he just doesn't strike me as that kind of. Maybe he's getting a little bit annoyed about the younger players thing and the energy thing, and maybe that was just his way of dealing with it. But yeah,
he's gonna start in Anfield with Modric, so his wish will be granted, I think. Now it's up to him to make a statement, though, to back up his words.
Anfield would be what? Tchouameni, Kroos, Modric, Fede, Vinicius, Benzema. Pretty straightforward.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Camavinga off the bench.
No question. Yeah. No question.
Alaba left back.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, and like I would bet on it. Assuming everyone's fresh and healthy, it's a fairly easy lineup to predict, in my opinion. Yeah.
That would be my guess as well, and also partly because we saw that Camavinga got tested a little bit in the Club World Cup. And it wasn't as peachy as it was in previous games where he wasn't.
To the surprise of no one, really. Whoever was expecting him to become, I don't know, Maldini all of a sudden in a span of just 2 weeks? It's just ridiculous, man. Camavinga is an excellent football player, but he's never been a left back. So, hey, surprise. He's not a left back. He doesn't defend all that well in that spot. His best spot is still in the midfield.
So whether it be left back or center midfield, it's that time of year, Lucas. We soon get to see the second leg at the Bernabeu in a Champions League knockout game and see what the hell happens. So exciting times ahead. Exciting or devastating times, I'm not sure.
We'll see, yeah.
We'll see. Lucas, this was fun.
Yes, sir.
It's great chatting. And just for our listeners' sake, Tuesday, tomorrow, we got another podcast with Stats Bomb coming out. A part 2 of a popular discussion that we had with them just after the New Year, I think it was. And then Wednesday post-game show on Zoom for patrons. Thursday mailbag with Lucas.
Yes, sir.
Thursday, right?
Yeah.
So
Friday, my birthday, man.
Yeah. That's right. So both of those shows are over on patreon.com/Managing Madrid. So we'll see you there. Thanks, Lucas. It was fun.
Thank you,
Good
Kiyan.
chatting.
Yes, sir.
Take care.
Talk to you on Thursday.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And before we send you along on your way and wrap it up here, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our patrons over on patreon.com/Managing Madrid. The ever-growing Real Madrid family that is being built there is incredible, and we're really thankful to be on this journey with you guys. So shout out to all of our patrons who get a ton of bonus content. If you want to get in on the action, go to patreon.com/Managing Madrid. And a specific shout out to these $10 plus patrons, because if you pledge $10 or more, not only do you get guaranteed responses to your questions, but you also get a specific shout out on the podcast. So shout out to these $10 patrons as follows: Brandon Alvarez, Willie Reed, Will Sousa, Way Paring, Tobias Arroyo Botcher, Taleb Salhab, Tahmid Kalam, Sujai Wani, Sumanchu Singh, Sheikh Hatiri, Shamil, Shabazz Sharapov, Sergio Arispe, Santos Solorzano, Samuli Justin, Sam Razi, Said Mahad, Sai Mohan, Sasi Kumar, Rodrigo Balmaceda, Rishi D, Phoenix, Peter Powell, Paulo Fierro, Patrick Odayafadi, Nico Laxo, Oscar Barrera, Mowgli, MJ Diego, Marin Myrtle, Michael Zinberg, Nicholas Moeller, Matthew Atkins, Martin Ridman, Magnus Lext, Logan Stahl, Leon Stavronakis, Kunal Tilakar, Crystal Glass, Kevin Rivera, Jose Cruz, John Fernandez, Jason Fitz, Ian Marley, Graham Gerard, Gary Kohut, Frederick Rantakiro, Frederick Sundros, Faisal Hamdan, S.A. Davisito, Eloy Enriquez, Edward Sossman, Daniel Williams, Con P, Christian Toft, Christian Acosta, Charles Williams, Brendan Powers, Brandon Stevens, Ashik Bashar, Arnab Mukherjee, Arman Gashi, Armando L, Anirudh Singh, Ananya Kumar, Azaz Hussain, Adrian Rios, Adar Zalukovic, Adam Dorsey, Bella Chow, Varun, Ramtin Maghrur, Fabio Moreno, and Daniel Smith. You guys are legends. Thank you so much. Love you all, and Hala Madrid.